stand tall in the face of tyranny. I want it all on my freedom and liberty. I'll keep my guns, you can keep your security. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny. I want it all on my freedom and liberty. I'll keep my guns, you can keep your security. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and everybody around the world. Joe Joseph here, and it's Freaky Friday. Did I do all right, Kev?
Not too bad. I think I'll be bringing it in next week, Joe. What did you do, man? You murdered my Freaky Friday.
I tried. You told me to bring it in. I tried.
Of the USS Freaky Friday, and you absolutely scuppered it, man. And you, the sailor. Oh, an abomination.
I hit the reef.
How's it going, guys?
Oh man, it's awesome. This is awesome. The new Freaky Friday off on its own. The maiden voyage. Arr.
Quite deserving of its standalone slot, I would say, and a lot more convenient for some of the listeners, because a lot of the time, Joe, I had people coming to me saying that was a fantastic hour one of the show, but where do we go for hours 2 and 3?
Yeah, because they don't know. It's after the superstar. We're the scraps.
Oh, less of the superstar. But from now on, folks, Freaky Friday will have its very own dedicated page in the download section. Now, all of that comes for free here on TFR for you good folks out there. And if you've got enough shekels in your pocket, we ask you to donate, and that will actually entitle you to the full backlog of archives. And, Joe, I believe it's in CD quality.
I think you are right. 64K, yes.
There you go, man.
So, I mean, it's good, and it helps us keep things running over here at TFR, which is great. And just a good way to support it. And at the same time, you get to listen to the archives without the commercials and in high quality. Just awesome. Should we bring on the good doc, Kev?
Before we even get to that, Joe.
Oh, yeah, we might want to, before we get sidetracked. Because if we bring him on, we're going to get totally derailed.
We've, of course, tonight joined by our third member of the Woo crew, and that is the one and only Martin Hardy. Marty.
Marty?
We were joined by Marty.
We were joined by Marty.
What's going on, folks?
There he is, man.
It's kind of hard with the 3G.
Major lag issues there, folks.
Uh-oh.
What we'll do is I will actually take the chat away before we bring the good doc on. Because tonight, folks, it is Miller time. That's correct.
Yes.
Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Just listen to me. I'm sitting here grinning away. Cannot wait for this one. But before we get there, let's hit the chat. 26 in the chat so far tonight. Want you all to hit that share button. Get the word out there. This is going to be fantastic stuff. 3 hours of woo right here on TFR. So let's start with Al, Crazy Tricky, Dr. Harry Wiener himself, Frank41, Ivy Nurse, Matt D, The Darkness, Woo Woo On About, Kev T, Silverman, Kaiser Chief, Gary Cat Lover, North of South, Penelope, Longshot, Squishy, Stushy, Bagpuss, Mitty Bush, and the list goes on. Cloud, Dr. Miller's bong hit, obviously in reference to his first appearance. John Teeter was here. Absolutely fantastic name. Angel Whispers, Tinfoil Wars, Mr. Chris Geo himself, Ozzy Anzac, Adi, and the one and only Joe Joseph. Welcome, one and all. So let's try and bring the doc in here, Joe. This is going to be a good one, isn't it?
Oh man, I'm just chomping at the bit to get to this one here, and oh boy, here we go.
Are you ready, folks? Are you ready? It's almost Miller time.
Yes.
Yeah. High life or low life, one of them.
Definitely the highlight of my day, Doc. Welcome back to Freaky Friday, sir. How are you doing?
You bet. Thank you. I had forgotten your accents are lovely.
As long as you don't mistake them for being Irish, that's okay. Yeah. We're all good to go, man.
I kind of remember it from childhood. Yeah, it's cool. I'm good. So, you got a countdown, or you're already on live?
That's us. We're on live, Doc. We're just waiting for your special brand of knowledge to take us away into the realms of the blue. I'm just going to set you off, Doc. There you go.
The Blarney that I remember. I remember that song.
Oh, wow.
Smoke rings.
He said Blarney.
I did. Going right up his blue smoke rings up my.
Doc, I tell you what, that just made my night right there. Tell you what.
He is, man.
Hey, so Doc, there's some stuff that you sent us this week that, and first of all, folks, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, you go to his website, drrichardalanmiller.com, and you can find some just banging information, awesome information, and a ton of books. Doc, how many books have you written?
Well, I've had a major actual manuscript ready for press for every year out of graduate school. And then I have maybe 6 monographs, PDFs, papers that each year out of graduate school. And I've been out of grad school, 43 years? I did one of my first books was Anarchist Cookbook and Magical Mushroom Handbook, Legal Highs, How to Make LSD in Your Kitchen. And that's the early years. I have become a little more, responsible. And so now I talk about pharmaceutical mushrooms rather than psychedelic. And for the last
wait a minute, Doc, you had a hand in the Pirates Handbook?
Yes, I was one of the 4 contributors. Yeah.
Get out of here.
Oh no, I was. Remember, I'm MacGyver from Navy SEAL. Let me give you my cool one. The cool one is a water pistol filled with ammonia. After the zombie hordes have raided all your food stores, there's still going to be 2 things on the shelf. There's going to be bleach and ammonia. And that ammonia will stop a rabid dog and is more non-lethal than pepper spray, except they wish they were dead. And that, you can have a water cannon, that throws a quart of ammonia for hordes. That'll stop it. That'll stop it. Okay. Now, take a light bulb and you drill a hole in the bottom of it. Let the air back in it. And then you put a little tiny bit of gasoline inside, maybe 1/4 of an inch. Screw it back up into the socket. It's a party waker-upper. It makes everybody get up and move.
I can only imagine.
That one will light up a room for sure.
It gets better and better with old age. Shit, I was making pipe bombs when I was 12 years old with my Chemcraft chemistry set. I called them.
There goes the NSA hotline then.
Well, no, I mean, you put fins on it to make it look like it's going to go somewhere stable. Didn't work like that. But see, it's like a bullet. Instead of rifling it, what you do is you put fins on it, and theoretically that'll keep it stable. It never did. This one I shot off or blew off in a rock pile. I think I was 14 at that time. I found it a block and a half away going through someone's roof. I snuck in quick, took it, and left. I got better after that and started making gun cotton and things like that. Nitrocellulose. And then, that's as a little kid.
Oh, wow. We've, one thing that I've noticed a lot of people do now is they've been messing with flash powder.
Yeah.
And now that's kind of fun too. You use about 25 grams of that, and it's more along the lines of a woof. You don't even get the explosion really. It's just more of like a shock wave.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know. It was a video on YouTube. I think there was a guy out there. He used like a 25 gram tube of this stuff, and he had a stump out in his front yard. So he's like, well, you know what? I'm going to try it on this stump. And, it was around the 4th of July. So he puts it in the stump. Wouldn't you know it blew the stump on his roof? That's crazy.
Well, Doc, after your last visit, one of my regular guests, Nanogirl, she insisted I actually ask you about something you kept referring to the first time round. You kept on referring to the grid going down. Now, do you know something that we don't, or are the powers that be planning on collapsing it? What's that all about, sir?
What do you mean exactly? I'm not getting through the accent.
It was on your first appearance on the show. You were actually talking about the grid going down. You mentioned it a few times.
The grid.
Yeah.
The grid. Yeah, coronal mass ejection from the sun has dropped, 50,000 cell phones in Toronto a couple of years back. Carrington effect. There's going to be, at some point, a large electromagnetic shockwave that will hit the Earth. It's lucky we didn't. There was a couple of them just a few months ago, but they were off to one side, so they didn't do anything. When that happens, the grid goes down. Grid is your electric power. That means you don't have water. And and in the United States, that capacitor is very unusual. You can Google it up. There are two grids in the United States, Texas and the rest of us. Texas is going to secede from the Union probably. And I'm just kidding. But the grid... I
think it actually probably should, Doc.
Well, of course, they're Republicans. Get a grip. They're all armed and dangerous. And, it's no place for old men.
I don't know. I
remember. I'll tell you. So, now, with all of that said, the capacitor system that our current United States grid uses is not a spare parts thing and will take approximately 3 years to rebuild as a single capacitor thing that's now managing the grid. That's how frail we are. And a CME could be just simply, a nuclear detonation in the atmosphere that was a, ELF weapon. One that put a spike.
You know what really amazes me, Doc, is the fact that, like, say, naval ships are hardened against EMP. Their power.
Not really. They're shielded against some kinds.
What was that?
They're shielded against some kinds of spikes. There are all kinds of new weaponry out. Right now, China's got a heat cannon. So, laser heat cannon.
Really?
Yes. It's on the internet.
Is it similar to the laser cannon that they used in the Gulf here recently? I've been seeing that.
See that thing, man?
Yeah, it's 7 welding lasers or something like that.
No. This is new technology, and actually, Lockheed. I just completed an article here. This is going to be I'll send you that file. You're going to be unbelievable on that. In fact, where am I? I've got to think myself because I'm trying to talk and I shouldn't. You should talk while I'm looking. And I'm not.
Oh, right. Well,
hold
let's
on.
do that. So anyway, there was that video, the video in the Persian Gulf. They were testing these, dragging the boats along and hitting these targets. They say to fire this laser cost about $1 instead of, how much standard ordnance costs.
Well, Joe, I'm going to sprinkle a bit of woo in there because do you know at the time that 370, MH370, you all remember that one, folks? Well, when that went missing, they were actually trialing that in the Indian Ocean. And I wonder.
Oh, well. I mean, that could very well be, dude. Who knows?
So certainly something that came up at the time, Joe. I mean, I don't know the veracity of that, but it was something that was thrown out there.
They flew over a pyramid that was under the water, and it opened a Stargate, and they went into another part of the universe.
You see, now you're trying to be sarcastic, right? But
I am not. I'm
tell
being
you,
totally
there's
serious.
actually a triangle in that location similar to the Bermuda Triangle, and they call it the Dragon's Triangle, and there have been anomalies similar to that seen over in the Bermuda Triangle right there. It's one of these vortexes on the planet.
I was being totally serious, by the way.
No, you weren't.
So here's the deal. I live next door to the Oregon vortex, and we have one here. It bends light up to 40,000 feet, and there's only one thing in physics that I can think of that would work like that, and that would be, a mini black hole. That's how it works.
There's also one in Alaska. There's one in Alaska, Doc, and I've seen it's like an optical illusion that takes place. You have two people standing beside each other, And because this energy, this vortex, does bend the light, it's as if one person appears so much taller than the other person did, even just moments before. And even when they swap places, it's as if that effect turns around. So there's definitely a light bending effect at these places.
So bending light would mean bending space, which would be a magnetic monopole. Now, that is a new device that Boeing has, which is creating an inertialess device that can move to Mach 50 without any gravitational effects. When you bend space, gravity is affected as it's related to, the curvature of space. That's how we're now seeing what gravity is.
Now,
By
Doc,
the way,
this kind of technology, would this actually, there's strange noises being heard around the planet right now. Could this been tested out?
I don't know if they're related. There is absolutely a pole shift going on. And if you don't think that's not going to create atmospheric anomalies, I mean, there's when we had that one magnetic pole shift for, I think it was about 7 hours, 8 hours. Now there's your dragon tails, and that's a different dragon tail than you're talking about. What happened was that the Earth has the solar system has a heliosphere. It's a big, like we're in a little bubble of protected ions or whatever. And when those ions, as a kind of a shield, if you will, that they dragged through in deep space what are known as dragon tails. They were big ribbons of ionized light. And what it did is it created a friction that pushed backward on the Earth stronger than the sun was pushing on the Earth from its own radiation. And that was a pole reversal, which is called a magnetic pole reversal. And it happened just 2 years ago. Now, the pole shift that I'm talking about is the magnetic fields of the Earth that are created because of continental plates and whatever's under it, the molten core, etc. And when that occurs, there is going to be some continental changes. That is the so-called big one. That's probably how it's going to happen to Earth.
Well, what kind of time frame would you say, Doc? I mean, we're talking 5 years, unpredictable maybe? Is this something that's imminent?
Yeah. I don't know when it's going to happen. It's overdue. In fact, historically, it's overdue. Dr. Bert Bolin, University of Stockholm, Sweden, is in geoelectrodynamics, like Wheeler and some of the others, and got a Nobel Prize for discussing that as the most probable thing that's going to happen to the Earth. And right now, the Russian NASAs have aerial showing, from space. That pole shift is actually occurring right now. It's moving towards Siberia. You can find it on the internet. There it is. It's literal.
So, Doc, if we do have some kind of crustal shift along with this, albeit even minimal, how does that tie in with all the money being spent on these deep underground military bases? Surely that kind of thing, even if they know it's coming, it renders them kind of useless, or at least it's going to be random whether they make it or not.
Well, where the continental shifts are going to happen won't be in inland. It'll be along the different, like the Ring of Fire and coastline, and that is so. Pretty much California's gone, and Grants Pass, where I live, will become the new waterfront. That is, if you do Google Maps, maps of the world, future map of the United States, that's a good one, and comma, Chet Snow. Chet Snow is one of the different, like Scallion and others that have done predictions, Edgar Casey, on what the new continental shelves will look like. The one the military uses is Chet Snow's. Now, that includes, Yellowstone, and Texas is gone. The United States gets cut in half, and you'll see the map. You'll get it. You'll understand from looking at the map why, and so on. Florida is already gone.
Is
Texas.
That kind of, does it split down the New Madrid or something like that?
Well, that's one of the fault lines. Yeah, the New Madrid fault line is part of it, but there's all kinds of other things involved here. And it's a complex things, and I'm not a architecture. I'm not into geology. I'm a physicist more. Now I'm looking at things from a bigger picture, like methane hydrates and how they're going to affect if the plates shift. What happens next is we have methane hydrates that are released, and global warming will absolutely. That's what the geoengineering was all about. I gave a talk last night on it, and who's doing it and why.
And Doc, have you spoken in the past? I may be mistaken, but I believe it was you. You spoke about cosmobiology. It's almost when planets align, there's big earthquakes down here.
Yes, I did. Good. You have an excellent memory, Joe. Good for you. That's excellent. Yes, that was Janif's work. There are a series of others. Rajik. They were all out of Yugoslavia. There was Janif did the lunar sex cycle of the female. There have been other studies that were on the cosmobiology form out of, it was mostly Czechoslovakia, not Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia. And that was Czech stuff that was happening. I have all the old literature. It's in Russian, and I had to, I still have some of that stuff too. It's actually, in fact, in my opinion, that was some of the best science ever done.
Yeah, because I think you were saying there was like some kind of, it was almost a correlation between the Sun, Uranus, and Earth. It was when they kind of aligned up, or there was some kind of triangulation between the three, we would see really strong quakes on Earth.
Yeah. That's that was a study I did that will be in a book I'm writing called Spook Central. When I worked for MRU, one of the projects I did was doing earthquake hazards for the Department of Interior, Menlo Park. And they were really concerned, there were 3 phases to that. What I did was the 2 that required computers and things. And then Dr. Wilbur Franklin did the one on catfish, where their skin resistance changes about 8 hours before a pole shift or an event like that. And earthquakes. And there's actually, you had a biosensor that was an early warning system. It turns out to be quite valid. That's why birds, when there's a pole shift, why we had all that bird kill. You know, that, do you realize that they see electromagnetic fields like we see color? They have a thing called paracoupling in their eyes. It has to do with the way there's an exchange of protons off the magnetic field and the way it would bend. And so that's how they have homing and that kind of thing. What happened?
Doc, just this month alone, the amount of anomalous behavior that we're seeing with animals. We've had seals beaching here. We've had sperm whales.
Definite pickup on that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's that because the pole shift that's happening. And when that, okay, now I wanted to tell you something. There's a science fiction, 2 books by Greg Bear, B-A-R, he's a good science fiction writer, wrote Epoch and Aeon. And in that book, at the last days of man, because when the pole shift, it goes down 100 miles into the mantle. The whole mantle changes. And when that occurs, there's nothing on Earth that lives. And the end of the book, aliens arrive, and they take 144,000 up into space to witness it from space. So they have witnessing the death of their mother.
Why that specific number, Doc?
Biblical, who cares? It's all archetypal. It triggers a bell, makes you go goosey. I don't know. The 4400 was a pretty good series.
There's actually a good series on right now called The 100. It's actually quite good.
Into lots of different things. You know, flute playing. Is it at 432 or 440? You know, there it is, the big one.
I was looking at that 432 thing the other day, and I found it really interesting that it correlated, I believe, with Saturn's orbit. It's actually, if you times the 432 by 2, it correlates with Saturn, and they say that would actually be the kind of frequency that would almost talk to our DNA, Doc.
What's going on here about credit? Are you guys just talking to each other? Yeah, I see that. Okay, you didn't know what that. I don't know. You know,
it's some tomfoolery in the background.
I've been eating. I'm just having dinner. Last night was well attended. We did a thing on geoengineering, and there were this one couple that came with an agenda to try to discredit me, and that was really they just got up and left. Everybody had booed them out of the stage. Everybody gets my physics, and everybody gets the sincerity of what I'm really trying to say. Problem is, there's a bunch of people that don't want that to be happening. What did I just send you? Oh, did you see that article on Rents Radio? He published that. That was last month. Yesterday, I wrote that other article, the Carrie Cassidy, 12, and the triggering mechanism. And I love this picture. I use this in the end of that article. Oh, man, this is so wonderful. Where is it? It's under Carrie Cassidy. I've got to go back to Nexus magazine.
I've just looked at that there, Doc. That is absolutely classic, and I've dropped it in the chat room for the listeners as well.
Yeah. Well,
so these carbon nanotubes, right?
Yep.
These carbon nanotubes have some very good uses.
What they can do, yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
just like everything else, there's always a good side, right? And that's how they sell it. But there's always the road to hell's paved by good intentions, Doc.
Imagine that. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out where I've got
That's all right. We got to go to break, but when we come back, we'll continue with Dr. Richard Allen Miller, drrichardalanmiller.com. Go there today. Check out his website. Download some of his material. Buy some of his books. It'd be awesome. We'll be right back, folks. More Freaky Friday here after these minutes.
Listening to the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
Welcome back, everybody. Joe Joseph here. You're listening to Freaky Friday right here on Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com, along with Kev Baker and Martin Hardy. And our special guest, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. That's richardalanmiller.com. If you want to know more about, let me tell you a little bit about some of the books that he's written, especially within the world of physics and the paranormal. He's written books called ESP Induction Through Forms of Self-Hypnosis, Power Tools for the 21st Century, The Non-Local Mind in a Holographic Universe, and the Diamond Body series, and much more. So check out his website, richardalanmiller.com, and check out all the great books that he has to offer over there, too. And, Doc, I don't want to get too sidetracked off of what we were talking about with the pole shift, because that's kind of sparked my interest. And I've been paying attention to the work of Ben Davidson on YouTube, who goes by Suspicious Observers, and how they pay attention. He specifically pays attention to how the sun's relationship to the Earth, but also the bodies of the other planetary bodies in our solar system to the sun, to the Earth. It's like they all interact with one another. So there's no doubt that happens. And when we do have these planetary alignments, that they do cause, earthquake upticks, among other things. And,
but there's a problem with that. And here's where it gets mystical.
Okay.
To have the planet Uranus and the Earth and the sun in a specific geometric alignment for earthquakes is physically impossible from any known laws. The magnetic field, gravitational fields, muons, whatever. There's no way that Uranus, as far away as it is, and as small as it is compared to the sun, should have any kind of triggering mechanism for a major earthquake on Earth. Suspicious Observer, your friend there, his primary motion is that almost all earthquakes are a result of coronal mass ejections. I, to some limited extent, absolutely agree with him. His data is impeccable in that regard, and it's statistical. However, the Yugoslavs back in the 70s found a more remarkable kicker. Like in magic circles, whenever an astrological event would occur, you had the precise timing, usually by the moon. The moon, because it moved so quickly, had different phases of it as to when the event would start and when it would end, based on Mars or Jupiter or whatever, like that. Okay, so that's astrology. And they used the moon as the kicker, or the side part. The cosmobiology is suggesting it was Neptune. And so there was this music of the spheres concept years ago, where there were harmonics with various planetary bodies as being higher functions like Uranus was a higher function of the sun. Okay, that's a concept in cosmobiology, resonance.
Ah,
And
so it's
go ahead.
more about frequency than it is magnetics,
Well,
would you say?
what frequency are we talking about? We're talking about a little heebie-jeebie here for a moment. Just track with me, because when you talk about frequency, which ones are those? You know, I mean, it's one thing to suggest it. It's another thing to actually have a working model that actually is talking about what bandwidth of frequencies are we talking about here.
Right.
Okay, well, I don't know which ones are.
Who knows? I guess it's a mystery.
Missouri, it isn't my Missouri. Hang the nigger. That's another one from old brother. Listen, it's concepts like that cause our worldviews to change and see things differently. And really, it's not about the laws as much as it is about our belief systems. I wouldn't have seen it if I hadn't believed it. So Uranus has a higher frequency with Jupiter, and it's metaphor. And so you have to understand what Jupiter might symbolize as a god. That's how Pantheon, the new book I'm going to be coming out with, will approach this. When I taught Navy SEALs, metaphoric living, very powerful tool. You saw everything in relationship to something else. That is part of the original Bibles as a tool called gematria, which you later call numerology. It was in the Book of Formation, the Sephirah. And with that, what they did is equate sounds with words, so that when you spoke the word of God, it did something more than just be a name. And that was Old Hebrew. And so with those metaphors, you could actually then begin to understand how planets might not actually be planets, as they are higher harmonics of something else going on. That was the way the Yugoslavian studies went into it, as cosmobiology. And let me tell you, there was some very interesting statistical things. When I had a 360 I used. What they wanted me to do is confirm that the theory that they were saying was true by going back to the year 1000 with major earthquakes on the Earth and how it related to the planet Uranus and the sun. And I had to have a big 360 to do that planetary calculation movement. And there was a 3 sigma error coefficient. That means that when Neptune, the Earth, and the sun were in a specific geometric alignment, there was a 99.99975% probability of the event occurring. 3 sigma. And that's impossible. And you don't think the Department of Interior wanted to have that equation for predicting earthquakes over suspicious observer that just uses the sun.
Wow.
Now, okay, Neptune was supposed to be considered, it's slow moving, but you get the idea. The positioning of it, because of where it is in the orbitals, it changes frequently with the sun. And so there might be some kind of physics that we don't quite yet understand on why that orbit is out there in the way it is in relationship to the orbit of the Earth around the sun. Now, networking, structural mathematics involved here, not just random chaos. And with that led to a whole new branch of physics, which was later called chaos physics, fuzzy wuzzy or fuzzy logic. And then they went downhill from there. Chaos magic out of England, get a grip. Who was that? Kenneth Grant. Not Kenneth Grant. Yes, it was Kenneth Grant, not Gareth Knight. Gareth Knight was my teacher. Now, there was a magician, in my opinion. Gareth Knight was every bit his own man as Aleister Crowley or what is his name? Mathers, Samuel McGregor Mathers. So let's go down those pipes. Golden Dawn. All your greatest writers in England, philosophers, were part of the Golden Dawn. I personally liked Ming. Fu Manchu. Where are my virgins? Elixir vitae. With that is what you're experiencing now, 21st century style. And it's interesting because there is the resonant metaphor ringing through it all. I noted that OTO, that had moved from England and had resided in New York for a bazillion years, they, evacuated a ship like lemming. I'm talking to you guys in Berlin. Hello. They left 2 years before 9/11 and went to Berlin, and that's where it's set up now.
And Doc, why do we see so many people in, say, Hollywood and the music industry so into like the things that the Golden Dawn were into, the OTO, stuff like that? What is that all about?
Ordo Templi Orientis, Order of the Temple of the Orient, otherwise known as the old in and out. God, I love Clockwork Orange. That
almost
was
the do as thou wilt kind of attitude.
It's sex magic. The Masonic secret came out of Tantric yoga and goes like, this is the Masonic secret. The thought that occurs at the moment of climax happens. Think about it. That's called the Mass of the Holy Ghost. Now, Crowley, that's what gave him divine right in Germany. When he came up with that, all the other Germans fell in line. There was, Harding and a couple of other, I can't think of the guy's name now.
Half of this stuff, Doc, came from Crowley's wife channeling this from some kind of interdimensional entity, did it not?
Well, Kenneth Anger is about 25, almost 30 years later.
Wow.
Kenneth Anger was he was part of 1949 Agape Lodge of North Hollywood. And Heflin and McFarlane and all of those were the guys I hung out with. I studied with Stanfield Jones up out of Canada. I was out of Seattle. There was Austin Osman Spar. Then, the uglier the woman, the greater the sex magic. Well, that's how it is, like cutting the throat of a chicken. It's so awful and so emotional inspiring as to create a thought form. And if you can direct that thought form, you can change the movie. I'm doing it right now for myself. And I've got the keys to the kingdom. I know how to do it. It's like, that's what you get when you're self-realized. And then you go from bliss states into joy, which is the highest state I've experienced so far in altered states. Mystical ontologies of exalted states and altered states of Walter.
So, Doc, when we see the symbols of the OTO and Masonic symbols in the movies and the music industry, and we've already heard you talking about how these shapes resonate basically in our mind, are they trying to alter our consciousness?
Good luck with that. You have a right, or actually not a right, better, let's rephrase that. You have a responsibility for the thoughts you choose to entertain. If they can distract you, or you are distracting yourself because you're neurotic, you want to get whipped because you don't feel very good, so you choose a mate that is kind of abusive. That's the way you dialogue with yourself in terms of what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go with yourself. And so you have to realize that at some point, what each of us has to barter when money hits the fan and it's nothing anymore. What is it? Mark Knopfler. The money's for nothing and the chicks are, it's basically your joy is what you are going to be the most valuable to the human race. That is when you're doing your true will. When you are in harmony, it's called, the women like to call it flowing. Everything comes to you. Everything just is natural. The way I'm in traffic, I'm just right there at the moment where I'm supposed to be, and the car just pulled out like it's supposed to, and da-da-da-da-da. That relationship to self is what is the single most important thing as a dialogue with your higher self is happening. And in terms of paying attention, and when you have nothing else to do, if your joy is playing a guitar, that's probably where everybody's going to want you to be in their little circle. And so recognizing your sense of self, of what's important to you, which is different for each of us, if you can focus on that part, now you've got access to what most people would call the future. What I'm doing right now is my future self is talking to me in the physics that I've sent to you.
Wow.
I don't know if you can understand the concept.
No, I definitely can, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of form of time slipping. And if I can do it, you can do it.
And you do this by the use of geometric shapes, do you not?
Well, geometries are gated, though, just like sound is. And so certain people gate out sound. I wouldn't have seen it if I hadn't believed it. You have filters. You're not hearing sound. You're filtering it. And the filters set up resonances with belief systems in the way you've stored memory. And so that's where your sacred geometry comes in. It has to do, like when you come out of the womb and that asshole doctor whacks you on the butt, and what happens next is you come out angry and screaming, and of course that's when they fingerprint you. That's noradrenaline, serotonin.
I've almost heard that described as like a trauma-based mind control event.
That's why Steve Gaskins wrote his books on spiritual midwifery. Just why a puppy in a litter and the way it's whelped has a whole lot different relationship to devotion than you do. So, yeah, it's the way you're birthed. Now,
so where do these shapes, where do we get them from, Doc? If we're just born into this world, where do we get the actual knowledge of these shapes from?
They're preferred pathways in the brain.
Okay.
The brain's convoluted. Think of it that way. That's not it, but that's a good way to think of it. Think of it that the brain is convoluted, so that if it's going from here to there, it has to do it in a couple of paths. We'll call that path the tree of life. Oh, wait.
It comes with inbuilt software.
Wait, no, that's the diamond body. Oh, wait. The Necker cube of space.
It's almost like a built-in software that we come with then, Doc.
Yeah, I'm trying to show off a little bit here in terms of Paul Foster Case wrote about the Necker cube of space. There were several others. Who's his name? Richard Chan. Just a moment. I'll get his name. Cavendish. Richard Cavendish. Another English one. Some of the best writings of ever. There is a series of books out called Man, Myth, and Magic. It was an encyclopedia that you got one book every week from Safeway, and there was 18 or 32. I don't know how many there was. A big set. I have it. The artwork in it by Richard Cavendish is exceptional. And the Butler, William Butler, was another writer out of England that wrote The Magician. And I'm telling you, the keys of the kingdom are in the ability of taking responsibility for the thoughts you choose to entertain. Once you do that, you have control of the good ship Lollipop.
Wow. You know, while we're talking about, sorry, Joe, but while we were on about these geometric shapes there, Doc, am I right in saying that if you picture the planet and you put a dodecahedron in it, these vortexes that we were talking about earlier, they actually tie up where the vortex the dodecahedron points at the surface. Is that right?
Yes, I'm going to give you a paper I wrote called The Dodecahedral Universe. How's that one sound?
Oh, that sounds like bedtime reading for him, Joe.
Yeah, geez, man. I mean, it's right up his alley.
Huh?
That's right up that old Scott's alley right there, man. He's going to be going to. Oh, man.
Here it comes. It's on its way to you. Now, basically, in the 15th and 16th century, they developed a mathematics called magic squares. You'll find these in some of the sacred magic of Abramelin the Mage. but basically they were called talismanic magic. There's your dodecahedral universe. Now, talismanic magic came out of these magic squares where when Raziel gave Enoch the name of the fallen angels, like Beelzebub and Ashtaroth, what you would do is set up a magic square for Neptune that had so many numbers going in this direction and that direction, and then you use numerology to graph on the demon's name, and that's where the demon's sigil came from. And once you had the demon's sigil, the geometry, you had control of the demon, and that's how it works. That's why
I've even heard that some of these sigils are in CERN, Doc. There was a student that was actually wandered off one of the tours, took a couple of photographs, and some of the sigils for the demons that you are talking about are in CERN. I mean, that's kind of mind-boggling. What do you think the correlation there is?
Well, subliminal, trying to assault you in subconscious and unconscious manner. That's why you're in charge of your ship and why you need to pay attention to what you're imaging in your mind's eye. The diamond body that I wrote basically created a geometric image, like the Meru project with Procter Gamble and Foster Gamble and I forget who, some other, Stan Tenen, yeah. They wrote this thing and got into a big war with, I don't know who it was, with his name. Yeah, anyway, he's out in the Scotch Isles right now, hiding out somewhere out there. Oh, Winters, Jeff Winters, something like that. Mm-hmm. And but the geometry, when you envision certain images in your mind's eye, they set up a resonance that will actually, in fact, develop release codes for certain neurotransmitters. Now, with all of that said, there was, as a metaphor, a group of aliens that were studying man because they could not understand how we could exist as a life form when the difference in being normal and psychotic could be measured in micrograms. Now, when you realize that and the subtle imaging controls that you have access to your mind's eye and being able to change the movie, it's time everybody wakes up, because the bad news is I don't get out of here until you do your deal. That's because at some level of the hologram, 4 up, not all the way up, only halfway up, I am you. That's called the archetypal plane or collective unconscious, where I am you and you are me, and I am the walrus. Cuckoo, cuckoo. Now that's
I knew the Beatles had to come into this at some point in time.
Isn't this just brilliant, Joe?
English today, so I did all the English magicians. All of those names were my teachers. I was really lucky, like I was in physics. I wasn't just physics, and I wasn't just agriculture. I'm a polymath.
And Doc, this place where we all are, the walrus, is this what they call the Akashic Records?
Akashic Records. You know, now 5 space. In the movie Interstellar, at the end of the movie, when he goes through that black hole and ends up in his library, where he's pushing books out of the library, hoping his daughter in the past will understand it's him trying to talk to her in cipher. That's 5 space.
That's some. That was extraordinary. I mean, the way that they,
I know, what's cool,
portrayed it. You know what I mean? The way that it was visualized.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Could you feasibly exist there?
You already are.
But I guess I'm saying like consciously.
Well, when the kid asked me what is gravity, instead of giving him the stock answer, I said there is no such thing. The Earth sucks. The
Well,
kid looked at me kind of.
The Earth sucks.
Well, you gotta love my humor. It's
Oh, no,
not.
it's good.
Well,
It's not quite the British dry wit that I get from time to time from Kev there.
Well, Joe, you know, after the break, you and the doc were talking about something during the last break to do with Hollow Earth.
Oh,
And I
yeah,
think
yeah. We
that'll be
definitely
a
got to
really
talk
good
about
place
that,
to
too.
start on the other side,
Yeah,
man.
bring it back into true before the hour. Okay, so cavitation is when a drop of water falls down and hits a large pool of water. What happens is a bunch of waves ripple out on the pool. There's also waves that travel inward, and they slap each other and create a water film that captures air. It looks like the drop of water popped back up into the air, halfway maybe, but it isn't a full drop of water. It's exclusion zone water that has captured some air. And in that movement, on a nanometer level, it creates a kind of topological space where the inside turns inside out on itself. And that is the topological surface of the air inside this water bubble. And that is what, you know, when a submarine goes through the water, you see all these water bubbles behind it. They're water bubbles. They're water surrounding air in cavitation. And if you look inside, a cavitation process is a torus or a black hole or whatever thing you want to call it, where it's turning into the out of. And that place is the possible construct of hollow Earth, where the Earth is in a cavitation process with the water forms that we have. And here we are today, somehow talking to another side of ourselves, which is a reflection. Now, the metaphor is that when the Big Bang happened, time started moving backward, and the forward time that we currently are enjoying is a reflected secondary byproduct wave, and that we are not the real people.
Oh, wow.
That's the new math in time travel. And going forward in time is a duplicate, reflected wave of the Big Bang. Now, with that...
Hold that thought, Doc. Hold that thought. Let's go to break. When we come back, hour number 2 and 3 of Freaky Friday. And more with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. That's richardallenmiller.com. Go there today. Check it out. We'll be right back.
You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
We are TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Is it true? Is it deja vu? Is it you? Can I
Welcome back, everybody. Joe Joseph here. You're listening to Freaky Friday right here on Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com, along with Kev Baker, Martin Hardy, and our guest, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. That's richardallenmiller.com. Yeah, we were talking about Hollow Earth. Doc, so from a scientific perspective, can they say for a certainty that the Earth is comprised of an inner core, outer core, mantle, crust, etc.?
Well, I don't know. I haven't been there recently, but
yeah, I didn't know if you.
Yeah. It seems like I'm in touch with something. That's not the double ganger concept. Now, it's Alan Dean Foster wrote a science fiction book called Into the Out of. It's worth reading. He also wrote Star Wars and The Last Starfighter and Outland. He wrote a bunch of science fiction. The one you want to read is Into the Out of. And he also wrote one called Maori, which is, you know, pretty interesting. But he lives down the street here in Ashland. There's a lot of creepy people around here. I'm just starting to meet some of the most strangest people. Yeah.
You must invite them on the show, Doc. They'd be more than welcome on here.
What's happening?
I'm saying you must invite some of these crazy people onto the show.
I'll create a hit list for you.
Oh yeah, that'd be just fantastic. So, do you think
Would you like them to come in through normal channels or beaming down Scotty?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, I think that Hollow Earth is a concept that will at some point find favor in physics because of our interest now in cavitation processes on a nanometer level, 10 to the minus 9 meters. When we start talking about things on that kind of a level, that's quantum mechanical level. Now you have a metaphor for how the whole thing kind of works, like networking, like Michael Risey in the soil. There is a woman up in BC that does a video. She's a forester at the University of British Columbia, and she talks about the mother tree in a forest. And there's always, just like in the movie Avatar, there's a mother tree that runs the network to tell when a forest fire is going through the forest, warning the other trees. They lock down and release certain kinds of things. Geometry is like that. It is a information transfer form, and it is Roger Penrose that wrote the Geometric Universe. He's from Princeton, and he and Stephen Hawking did a book together where Hawking would do his white black hole parable metaphor, and then Roger Penrose would come in with torus twistor space, and they were opposite. And they went back and forth through the book, and at the last chapter, they're actually the same thing, just like everything is. It's the way you choose to look at something. A sand painting, I saw two Hopi once do a sand painting. The military sent me in because these guys apparently could change the weather just with sand paintings. How does that work?
How did that work?
Yeah, okay. They make this sand painting, and as they're making it, these storm clouds start appearing out of nowhere, just like in, Independence Day or something, with a big alien craft coming in behind it. And it was really weird. And this one Navajo, halfway through, and the storm's coming on, looked at me, looked down at the sand painting, looked back at me, and he winked at me. And then he ran his hand through the sand painting, and he broke the sand painting. And what happened next was the weather went back to normal. And then I stepped back, and I realized that it looked like a solid-state physics device. Technology has many faces. It has to do with imagination, not the laws of physics. Laws of physics do not last long at all. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle immediately limited quantum mechanics in that the more you know about one thing, the less you know about something else. And in a holographic system, rather than talking about knowing something or not knowing something, you had resolutions of knowing something. That's why EQ is over IQ. Said that one for the women. Yeah, you get it all?
Oh, no, absolutely. So Hollow Earth has a way to kind of gain some favor, and consequently, would you say that because the bodies interact the way they do, it's not in the typical scientific textbook fashion that they try to sell everybody? Would you say that there is a movement afoot to maybe suppress the real reasons why, or is it because people just genuinely don't know as far as how things interact?
My stock answer would be yes, all of the above.
I gotcha.
Yeah, well, no, it's all of the above, really. It is. Control is a fantasy. It's not real. To think that you have control of something is an illusion. The whole thing is about change. So, I mean, to think that you're going to be a Rothschild and be able to control everything, well, aliens, whatever, you have a responsibility. That's what made you God's favorite. Your genes in you are cooperative. That's where they can put an alien in you in the fourth genome blood type, whatever, where you're at war with yourself. And your resolution down here in the physical force space is being manipulated by you in 5 space, trying to talk to you, just like in the movie Interstellar. And what you're trying to do is follow your joy. And that's where the two of you hook up. And so that's self-realization. That's knowledge and conversation. That's what it is, where you're able to talk to your higher self like you and I are talking to each other right now.
I got a question from the chat room, Doc. What's your opinions on Kundalini energy?
Elixir Vitae. That Kundalini is the chill that goes up and down your spine. You know, and you can generate. Yeah, and you can generate that chill. Sri Aurobindo is going up the spine. Gopai Krishna is going down the spine. What it is a series of cilia, very micro, you can't see them, that stick out of the central nervous system spine and start to oscillate. The first one and then the second one transferring energy up and down the spine. That's that chill that you have. The interesting part is the frequency band in that is the invisible white light region.
And this is basically the chakra system, is it not?
It's an actual light beam that if you straighten your spine correctly, you can stimulate the pineal gland, which is light sensitive.
And this is all the chakra system, is it not, Doc?
Well, we're talking about Kundalini now, and sex magic and tantric yoga, and how to master the Holy Ghost. That's a technology, trained SEAL science. Believe it or not, that's going to be in one of my books, how to actually control that light beam and stimulate your pineal gland. Because what the pineal gland is next to is your neural cavity. And the neural on the other side is the thalamus. And what you have there is a resonant cavity oscillator. And if you get the light beam to stimulate the pineal gland emits dimethyltryptamine. That's the chill that you feel in your body. That is dimethyltryptamine. And you can feel it. That's how it works. And you can use that with your mind's eye, turning that chill on at will. Everybody can do it. You've already done it. You practice a little bit, pretty soon you get pretty good at it. It's a simple, learned exercise that will stimulate your pineal gland. Excuse me one moment. Hello?
Well, wow, Joe, so there you go. There's a way of stimulating our own DMT.
I'll be damned, man. You know what's funny is I can do that.
I know chill part.
Yeah, I can do the chill at will. I know how to. I've always been, since I was a kid, I've always been able to do that.
Everybody does it, and everybody does it sorta, and everybody does it a little more and different. It's all different for each of us. That's Kundalini.
Now let me explain to you what happens with me, Doc. When I do it, I can get that feeling down my spine, but also in my arms and in my hands. Well, those are secondary releases of no, I don't know. Let's see, endorphins, endorphins, ecthelians, narcotics. Now it feels good. You know, that's usually after sex. What the resonant secondaries are shock waves that are inflaming. That's a good word. Inflaming your body. And in the old Tantra sex forms, that was Kudash. It had a name and was basically electronic trial by fire, Tapesha ritual. And that idea of becoming electrical, you have to be very careful. Sometimes, if you don't do that right, you can have spontaneous combustion and you burst up in a big ball of fire. Is that what happens? Yeah. Get out of here.
Oh, wow.
Man. Okay, Kev.
That's one of the things that is part of Firestarter, that whole mythology, is that ability to generate that kind of energy from resonance. Now, that, again, goes all back to cavitation. It's a cavitation process. Now, there's your hollow earth on a lower scale of the hologram in metaphor.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it shows the whole fractal nature of this universe. Sorry,
Say that
Doc, I was
again,
just
Kev?
saying it's basically showing the whole fractal nature of the universe.
There you go. You're getting the picture of it. There is a kind of softness to it all. As above, so below. I wouldn't have seen it if I hadn't believed it.
There you go, Joe. I've sussed it.
I saw actually the sun emitted in 2010 a perfect coronal mass ejection in DNA form, perfectly structured. That's mathematically impossible. I saw it. NASA's got the pictures. NASA's got a lot of real strange pictures. You creep around there. How about
sure. Like
how
the
about
moon
that
landing?
artifact down near Mercury?
Like
How
the moon
about-
landing?
No, that's Navy. NASA's more international or intergalactic.
Intergalactic, yes. The intergalactic space fleet on the dark side of the moon.
If you're to believe Gordon Duff and some of these others. Now, Gordon Duff publicly has said that half his information is purposefully disinformation to protect his life.
Yeah.
Half of what I say is true, and I'm not going to tell you which.
I'm not going to tell you which. You got to decipher it for yourself.
No, that's what Paul Foster Case used to say in his Necker Cube of Space. He would write purposely mistakes so that the scholar saw those as such as a type of code in discussion. That's why Crowley did Liber. And all his things have secondary metaphor, just like my books. My books are written in 8 chapters using each resonance of the hologram, diagrams, if you will, out of the I Ching. It is another technique of using 64, there it is, using mathematics as a coding system to convey more and more information in less and less space. Now, water is, with exclusion zones, is 1 million times more efficient than gallium arsenide and forbidden zones. That's 6 zeros. And so water will eventually become our new computer. In fact, it already is in you and has all of your Akashic records, if you'd like to talk back to that movie, Five Space. And so the metaphor is you noticing them and the relationship you have to them and to yourself.
Did you get all that, Kev?
That's
Most of it, yeah.
Yeah. What part of that?
No, see, Kev gets all this stuff. Kev gets it. I'm getting there. But
it's not supposed to be getting. It's Simon says you can go only halfway to the door. The door is not a goal. It's about the journey. That's why they call it Path 25, not Tippereth.
Okay,
go ahead, Kev.
My brain just melted out.
I know mine too. I'm like it's like one of the Fukushima reactors. It just went through my foot.
Better. That's China syndrome getting back at you.
And you know,
Yeah.
Doc, we were mentioning during the break how time seems to be almost speeding up. And you were saying to me that in one day now, people are able to cram in 10 days worth of stuff. What exactly were you meaning by that?
Mayan calendar, and I'm glad you caught that. I'm impressed. I put out a lot of things, and most people don't really understand them and don't want to pursue them. In the Mayan calendar, it is predicting a period of days where these days are experienced as single days where you're actually doing 10 times what you did 5 years ago.
Yeah, I can buy into that. I mean, look at 100 years ago, how far we've progressed.
Hey, well,
and
that
then in the
has
past
another
year, look
name.
at the changes in the iPhone 5 to the iPhone 6. Everything
So
just
that
seems to
has
get
a-
quicker.
That has another name in the Bible called the end of days or the quickening. It is a metaphor for when Joseph Campbell said that when you see the kingdom of the Father on earth, the apocalypse has already occurred. It is perpetual in its potential. It's part of your archetypal being.
You know, even by creating artificial intelligence, Doc, are we not almost creating that God on Earth?
Yeah, that's what I've been talking about. By George, I think he's got it. The rain in Spain.
That's
Wow.
good, Kev, because I'm totally lost right now. So you are the man.
It's okay. My future self has actually sat and had a smoke with the
Well, you're
future
getting the resonant. There's a movie called The One with Jet Li. That's a worthwhile watch.
Oh
That's a
yeah,
good-
that was a good movie.
Okay, well, why?
Well, because
Besides
it was really cool because of the whole multiverse thing. But, I mean, it to me it was a good story. I don't know. After that,
There you go.
I kind of get lost because I just don't understand how it exists at that level. But that's just me, you know.
You're not there yet, but that's not because you're not going to be there, which means you already are there.
Ooh.
That's the cavitation
It's just you've not
process.
caught up with yourself yet, Joe.
I'm working on it.
Gets, the closer you get, it seems further. That's
So
the cavitation relationship of it.
So I guess that means I'm a little bit slow, am I?
Huh? What?
Yeah, exactly.
What?
But I mean, I understand what you see. Time seems to be, to me, the real the hinge pin of it all. I guess.
Well, it's not real.
Time is
that's the whole thing. It's a duration of consciousness. It's Robert Ornstein, The Roots of Consciousness, and that book suggests it's the way you store memory, the way the information is arrayed.
So I guess you could say like it's an organizational tool, or
Just to stop everything happening at once, Joe.
but you can change your perception of it with breath. That's in my book. That was one of the techniques that I trained SEALs on so they could box paranormally. Time is part of the way you relate to your universe. And if you manage or mind your breathing in that level of a personal awareness, controlling breath like didgeridoo, you know, then
yeah,
go.
no, that's something.
Well, what you're doing is you're changing your state of consciousness and putting more carbon dioxide into the blood. Now, that state does not have the prick awareness of your current enjoyed conscious state, but it is able to notice details that your state right now cannot, including the curvature in your hand for a word up. And when you realize the difference of still being able to function, it's quite amazing that you're able to do it in what you would call consciousness. Oh man!
So, Doc, when we're
people
talking,
don't have a clue how.
when we're
how
talking about
quick-
time, the elites and people like that, Kronos, people are dealing with Saturn. Now, right now, we're in the old Roman celebration of Saturnalia. What is it about Saturn that these elites and the people that follow the Crowley kind of magic and things, the Saturnalian Brotherhood, what is it about that Saturn that they hold
Well,
so dear?
Saturn is related to paranoia, and it will
Destroy you.
Yeah, so that's why you have avatars and the avatar program, so that you can go slim down on the surface of Saturn and enjoy outer space and deep sleep.
And is this avatar thing happening just now?
Well,
Because
that's the
Google are
trend.
talking about it.
What's that?
Google are actually talking about their avatar program taking off very soon.
Yeah, well, they've already got an Avatar 1 program. The Avatar 4 is when they uplink you into that body permanently. And
Okay,
then
so-
you have a series of golem where your consciousness has now become literally, consciously immortal. That's
So-
called magical memory.
You're basically
so-
part of the AI, Joe.
Oh, okay,
Just
so
about- yeah.
so that's very much like transcendence, then, right, Kev? The
Basically,
concept.
yeah. Basically, you become one. You're an omnipresent being.
Your thought patterns got transferred, but your soul didn't get transferred. Your spirit didn't get transferred. That's the
That's
problem.
the thing. It's the brain. This is the
Well,
thing, though, Joe. You've got your
Good luck
brain.
with all of that argument, because I haven't crossed over, and yet I'm talking to the future. So how does that work?
That's a very good
Well-
question. I would say copious amounts of hallucinogens.
I just smoke pot. But
I'm just busted. Yeah. But
I was going to open the show when you asked me how I am, and I would have responded, neat, 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 neat. That's that's Jack Nicholson in Easy Rider when he took his first hit.
No, that's kind of funny.
Doc, you do realize when I move to the United States, I'm coming to live with you for at least a month till I learn all this stuff.
Just download it.
And that's just a fraction of what the Doc probably knows.
So, as far as like it now, one thing that I have read up is the what is it? The enteric brain or the small brain? I guess they call it.
There's a bunch of them in there.
Yeah, it's like 100 million neurons that go from your esophagus down to your bowels.
Well, that's right. Your enteric nervous system is your first brain. It actually begins the process of signaling whether the upper brain is involved or the bowels are. Or something.
Right. Well, but they also say your gut instinct, that your gut
That's
often
right.
knows something before your brain does.
That's correct. It is a switching board with neurotransmitters and all kinds of different parts of processing, just like the upper brain. The upper brain is there basically to make all your beliefs true.
I see. So then, this is
yeah.
Like
a word.
hold on. No, it's not like it's. I've heard a lot said that the spirit resides in the gut.
Well, the stag and the unicorn in the forest go, soul and spirit within matter. Yeah, one's mortal and one is immortal. The heart probably has resolutions just like the brain does.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. That's where the bliss thing came from. Right? Love, bliss, and then joy. I love bliss. I'm blissed out, and now I'm in total joy. These are the hierarchies like love was eros, philo, agape, telema. They were different layers of the resolution. Telema or thelema was the love of will, your purpose. Get me?
Oh, I'm there. I'm definitely there.
Of course, Joe, what the Doc's referring to there is the brand of
movie, and he would always lay it down and then get me. Do you understand? Get me.
And I mean, this is the Crowley magic that Doc's referring to there. The thelema, is it, Doc?
I'm sorry? Say again?
Is it thelema you call it?
Thelema or telema?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, telema.
That was
Telema is
Crowley's
the love of,
magic.
the highest form of love in Greek philosophy. Your purpose. That's what your joy is about. You follow your joy, and that's what everybody wants from you.
Kind of like projecting positivity, perhaps.
Well, some people are grumpy old men. I don't know.
That turn that frown upside down mentality. Is that what it is?
It's everybody's different.
Right.
It is. We're all getting along. That's out of Mars Attacks. Right in the.
You mean the kumbaya, my lord moment?
Yeah, the kumbaya, Lord. Yeah, that one. Where the alien has a tear going down his eye and laughs.
Now, Doc, when we come back from the break, I want to hear about some of the more crazy experiments you were a part of in your time working with, say, the SEALs and all these dark ops that I bet you were a part of. What do you think, Joe?
Oh, come on, man. It doesn't get much juicy than that, you know?
What would you like me to talk about?
Well, yes, nothing tantric. Nothing tantric, okay? We'll talk about it.
When he trips, he pole vaults out window.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network. We are TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back, everybody. Joe Joseph here. This is Freaky Friday. About halfway through. And, boy, we're just thick in the woo.
And so you missed it there. You could have said halfway through the woo.
Halfway through the woo. And our special guest tonight, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, richardallenmiller.com. And of course, you know, folks, as I say all the time, some of the best conversation always comes up during the break. It just is what it is.
Don't worry, Joe. I've told the listeners in the chat room, get your tinfoil out. We are going deep woo, even for Freaky Friday.
So now that I've pretty much got the shop vac out, the wet dry vac, and pumped my brain back into my skull, I am going to I'm going to hand it off to the doc here with this. So we were talking during the break about, you know, asking you, well, what kind of deep, dark experiments were you associated with, you know, in your time? And can you give us any good stuff? And boy, you sure didn't disappoint. Tell us about
it. Actually, that thing is, it actually happened. I have no idea what it all means.
Okay.
I probably will never really get what it means. How they discovered the head, how they identified it.
You need to start from scratch again,
and then call back to Seattle with.
Hey, Doc, hold on one sec. Can you start from the beginning for the listeners?
Yeah, basically, Marcia Moore smuggled some ketamine out of her husband's research lab and took it to her group up in Arlington.
Right.
And they were an alien contact group, and ketamine was being studied because it created close encounters.
Really?
Yeah. Intravenously. Not like they use on a child, which is intramuscular, as one of the primary things that he used. When it's used intravenously, it creates phenomena like 5-alpha dimethyltryptamine and when negative and others had written about contactee with stick people, stick aliens. Now, that was with 5-alpha. That was out of, where was it, Berkeley. And it was a designer part of it. 5-alpha is a little different. That, you know, there's N, comma, N hyphen. There's a bunch of different forms of dimethyltryptamine, DMT. It appears in a lot of common plants. That's the Rick Strassman drug. The one that Marcia Moore was interested in was the ketamine. And I was in the lab next door doing mind control studies with microwave.
Now, before you get into, how does one get into a study like that? Mind control with microwaves. I'm just asking. I mean, it's unbelievable that this is things that when you're not a scientist, your jaw just drops. You're like, what? You were testing what? You were doing what?
Yeah, we discovered that man has another sensory motor input in the 0.3 to 3 gigahertz microwave band. That's how aliens probably talk. I don't know. They don't need air.
Wow.
Now, how it with microwave. And your temporal lobes are especially sensitive to that specific frequency band, very narrow bandwidth, 0.3 to 3 gigahertz. And what happens is it heats up the temporal lobe and it begins to ring, and you can put on the microwave band then, it doesn't hurt you, it just causes them to heat up a little bit and they ring like a little bell. And what happens next is you can put voices, heterodyne voices onto, and you can hear them in your head. The ones can go through, auditory systems.
Oh,
that was Alan Frey's work out of Willow Grove, and that's what I was doing, studying that a little bit in my lab.
Wow,
you know what's quite interesting here? I mean, the doc was talking about the experiment, and he was talking about ketamine. And Chris Geo just sent me an article, and it says here it's from 2007. But it says a Campbell River man has received $63,000 in damages for what is called, wait for this, quote, an out-of-body experience in which he said he saw God after being accidentally overdosed with the painkiller ketamine. So this, Joe, certainly does bring about some kind of experience.
This is unbelievable, Doc.
Yeah, ketamine, but this is 1971. And so ketamine is an interesting drug in the way it metabolizes. It's when in my neurologic circuits, it's one of the neurotransmitters in the brain. And what happened was she smuggled some of this out of his lab, took it out to Arlington, and a bunch of civilians are out having a big party to have contact with aliens and everything, when all of a sudden, in the middle of their ritual that they're doing, the police show up looking for Marcia Moore that was still alive, because she had been identified as severed head in the Florida Everglades, which is a 3-hour difference some hours earlier. This means we're now talking about something else going on outside of time and space with ketamine. And that's when they stopped my mind control studies and brought me in, because nobody else could quite get their head around what.
So was this kind of like some kind of bi-location going on?
There you go. That's possibly one of the metaphors, which might go back to your hollow earth concept, into the out of, where time is bent like space is with certain kinds of phenomena. Now, I don't have the big picture, but I find it interesting that dimethyltryptamine, which is called the God drug, that's the one in your brain that gives you a sense of something more than you, God. It's like, would be found in the most commonest of plants like crabgrass. And that it's almost as if it's not about the chemistry, the geometry. It's more about a delivery system from God.
And that would be why, is it Rick Strassman calls it the spirit molecule?
So here we are, trying to figure out what's all going on. We caught a lot of flies back then with our mouths open in disbelief. I have seen things that I have no explanation for. I'm not sure what it means. I don't know that I'll ever know, really.
So what is it you've actually seen when you were looking into that, Doc?
What's that?
What did you actually see? What were some of the effects that you found when you were looking into this kind of stuff?
That, like Skinwalker Ranch, there's an anomaly in time-space that doesn't make sense, and who knows what it actually might mean. It might be a schism in the collective unconscious where arbitrarily some people are starting to see another universe that's supposedly in conflict with us right now.
Is that almost like a rapture type thing? Will some of us be here one moment?
There's a giant, it's called the, Chanty project, the Chanty project in Africa. That's a big collider, similar to the one in CERN, that has, physics-wise, supposedly made contact with an alternate universe. And that we're cascading between these two universes at this very moment. And that some people arbitrarily see things that other people can't see as a schism in the collective unconscious of men. We see this with alien abduction. We see this with targeted individuals. There are group hysteria that has a similar set of vectors, but we don't know what's really going on. And to experience this in many, many of the different projects I was working on gave me a sense of, we're not so evolved as we think we are. We don't have a clue.
And is this other universe a copy of ours, or is it totally different?
Yes.
The answer is a resounding yes.
Yes. I mean, that's pretty much the way I get it now.
This is almost like the television show Fringe. You had two universes rubbing together, and there was almost a bleed over at some certain point.
Well, and that's the quickening and some of the other things that are happening, where all of a sudden you're having access to previous and future knowledge. That's like sucking a priori and a posteriori forms of knowledge base. And where did it come from? Genetics on the DNA? Yeah. They say that your phobias, that's in the media recent, a couple days ago, that your phobias are a direct result of genetics of someone somewhere in your past, in the genetic line, having a fear of spiders.
Like, I certainly have some kind of genetic memory for Egypt or something because I feel such a pull there, Doc. And I know other people have pulls to other places, and that's got to be some kind of genetic imprint that we've arrived here with.
So I don't know that we'll know the proper locksmith to that this century. Our great-grandchildren might. And, of course, that's just little mini-me's. So there are lots of different ways to look at what reincarnation actually implies when you talk about the nature and structure of water. The way, the amount of information that a drop of water can hold and contain the entire universe. That's why Mark Leclerc talks at the water of life. It's God on earth. Well, when you look at spirit molecules and, some of the other things like dimethyltryptamine, it's awfully, awfully interesting. It's all about geometry.
I do know that, water is a very, of course, it's a very important component in life. But I do know that a lot of research into water recently has really unlocked. I don't want to say unlocked, but people have started to see the potential of it. And it's not just simply something that hydrates you. There's so much more to it.
Yeah, well, I'm further down the line on that one. I have to tell you, you mean structure in water in terms of your internal landscape, the glass half full. You've just been given something, and if yet you looked at the glass as half empty and you've lost something, you're going to get cancer if you're angry. It will structure the water. That's why you have to take responsibility for those thoughts. And if they're creepy, is that the universe you want?
So you can actually project your own reality? Is that what you're saying?
You already are, yes.
Come on, Kev.
I'm sitting listening to you, Joe. I've hogged the talk long enough.
No, Kev. I guess
we have bongo.
Kev.
But on that quantum level, Joe, you know that you collapse your own reality.
No, see, let me say this. I don't understand anything at a quantum level. I'm more at your down here on Earth level.
Well, you guys
are in Delta Quadrant, not me.
I find really interesting. I was just listening to something.
Earth of Nature, Tom.
I was listening to something last night that Joe had sent me, and it was called "The Existence of God," and it was making a case for some kind of architect behind everything that we see, shall we say? And I found it really, really fascinating that even down at the quantum level, we could still see things like the golden ratio. That 1.618 differential. What do you make of the golden ratio and stuff like that? Is that the fingerprints of God?
Well, it's one of them. There's a whole bunch of different ones. That's why they call it a spectrum. And wavelengths actually have bandwidths, which is from here to there, not just one wavelength. And harmonics have to do with the exchange of complex systems of information with the bandwidth forms from 434 to 440. And so you have length, girth, and width with an element of time, and then you have 5-space, which gives you a multiverse, and then you have 6-space, which gives you the degrees of freedom are not knowable beyond a certain level because your brain has not been resonantly functioning like, let's say, orca. Orca has a cerebral cortex that's twice the size of man. And when that mammal is being studied in full alert systems, it's 60% of it's firing, not 10%. If you want to know, that's a fact.
Well, wait, hold on a second. Okay, because Kev,
here we go.
Here it is again. So why not ask the expert, right? How the hell do we know what 100% is? Just out of curiosity. How do we quantify the brain is 100% active?
You mean like in the movie Lucy or the dinosaur Lucy way, 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 way back? Which Lucy? Would she please stand up? Dorothy Kilgallen.
But how do we quantify that? It's kind of like this. Okay, so here I am. I'm getting ready to deploy to the Persian Gulf, and part of our training was to get some training we conducted boardings over there and in enforcing the oil for food program while Saddam was over there in Iraq. And so, we had the SEAL det there, and they're teaching us all the moves and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so we're doing a takedown move, right? And it's that classic Captain Kirk chop you in the neck type of thing, right? To send the blood right up to your brain, shooting up to your brain. And so he goes, all right, I need a volunteer. You, come here. Okay, so here I am. And he goes, okay, now I'm going to show you this move, 20%. And I'm like, whoa. Wait a minute. What's 20%? How do you know what 20% is? Before I know it, I'm on the ground. I was like, holy crap, 20%. What the hell's 100%? How do you quantify that when it comes to the brain? How do we know where we max out?
Yeah, at the stage that you're at, you don't choose to see it as an end point, but a goal. And that what you're doing is the journey going toward that goal. That's 100%.
So it's not like
another level of
it's not like like say for example a computer that speed is 3.75 and we know that gigahertz and that is the fastest that processor can go 3.75 gigahertz. It's
mobility transport processes in the color centers and defects in the crystal. Yes, I know that spot. The point I'm trying to make is that once you're in the process, that is called Path 25. It's called art. It's a process. And all you're doing is an artistic form. So in that sense of it, at that place in the hologram, magic is the art of changing consciousness at will. That is different levels of it until you have union with self. That's your 100%. That's called Tippereth. Christ.
Would that be like your Zen place type of thing? When you've achieved like Zen?
And different scales of it and your relationship to it. Yeah. And that's in middle pillar. There's outer pillars too. But if you're going middle pillar, the next one goes straight to God, but it goes through a missing Sephiroth called Daath, D-A-A-T-H, and that's where your concept of death came from. And then there's the Sea of Karanzan, the boatman. Always have 2 pennies in your pocket. Trust me. That's your 20%er part. So what the joy is when you end up at the end of the day, what actually happened. That's intent. This is a new chapter I'm writing in the non-local mind in a holographic universe, where I talk about the Stanford argument, which is an argument in the distinction and difference between intent and intentionality, which is the next level above, what I talked about in Power Tools, which was the difference between being ethical and moral. And the difference between ethics and moral, what happened is in the movie or the series NCIS, they asked Ducky Mallard what the difference was between an ethical man and a moral man. And Ducky Mallard responded, well, an ethical man knows not to cheat on his wife. A moral man won't. Now, the distinction of that to intent and intentionality is when Maxwell Smart says to Agent 99, missed it by that much. When you try to do something, you have already set up the steps toward failure. It isn't about trying to do something. It is doing it. One step at a time.
Yeah, I think people should always visualize when they're attempting something the fact that it's already been completed, whatever it is, whatever positive outcome they would like to happen. They should actually put themselves in the frame of mind that they're already there, almost
Well,
travel to the future and make it so.
the idea that when you have a problem that confronts you, once you've identified what the problem is, you'll notice the solution is already in hand. That is a theorem in information theory that says that if you have enough information to ask a coherent question, you have enough information to answer it. The answer is in the definition of the question itself.
Not very deep, that one, Joe.
That's your nature of time. The realization of net or new.
I got a mess on the floor again. My brain leaked out my
I'm
ear.
definitely going to call this show Future Messages from Time Traveler, Dr. Richard Allen Miller.
Good God, have mercy.
Very
That
true,
was
though.
Spooky Tooth when he sang it with God have mercy, Hosanna in the highest, when Spooky Tooth sang with Pierre Henry. Check it out.
I think I will. Hey, I want to get to you about this real quick since I'm totally lost.
Joe.
So I'm totally
Yeah,
I'm total. But one thing I can you sent me something on magnetic monopoles, and specifically like the neodymium magnet,
yeah.
and things like that. Have you been or seen any experimentations as far as maybe using the neodymium magnets, that type of thing, in a free energy sense, trying to like perpetual motion generators?
What they're doing is what's called a what is it called? A Tesla coil. And
Yes.
it's a Tesla coil. And what the energies of that come from are eddy currents in the impurities in the metal itself. You usually use aluminum, and it floats. The bad news is those eddy currents that make it float like that also heat it up, and it gets real hot.
Oh boy, yeah, aluminum doesn't like heat that much.
There you go. Well, we have so you have a little shifting and going on there. Neodymium magnets, those things are all new to me because I've been out of the laboratory literally for 35 years.
Is that right? It's been that long?
I was a farmer getting grip. They call
I know.
me.
Hey, by the way, let me. I want to also
milking cows and chasing chickens.
But I want to mention this, by the way, folks. If you want to check out some of the consulting that Dr. Miller does, you can go to greencarebotanicals.com and check out that. I mean, you want to say again, who knew there was that much to farming? I had no idea.
For the Emerald Cup.
The Emerald Cup is right.
That's what we do out here. You gotta love the good old boys. It was the Amish that taught me to blow my nose with my finger, and it was the Quakers that taught me how to have the joy of doing it.
There is. Would you say there's something therapeutic to farming?
You're closer to the earth. You feel a sense of being close to Gaia, the mycorrhizae in the soil, the way it grows things, the flowers. The Orchid Thief aside, that was a really cool movie. The idea that a flower has developed its petals to look like the biggest pussy in the world to some insect is kind of curious. I mean, where the insect falls instantly in love with the plant and can't help itself, That's the Orchid Thief. Yeah, I've been all over the place, I have to tell you. And I have to tell you that farming, there's something about it that it gives you a sense of sovereignty because you're growing your own food.
Sure, independence.
That's
absolutely
correct. And even if it isn't complete, what you do, cow manure, that what you end up doing, you can barter. We have an Oregon Country Fair out here in Oregon every year in August, and it's out in a town called Veneta, just near Eugene, and it's out in the country. And it's called Veneta Freaky, with a bunch of old ladies making fashion statements. And they're all going around naked with paint. And it's about barter. And it started with the Rainbow family up in the Okanagans about 30 years ago. We had up in Curlew and Republic, we had the barter fair. And now it has become the Oregon Country Fair. And that, in its own, is probably the biggest journey of your life.
Well,
you
Doc,
will never see anything like the Oregon Country Fair.
I have to thank you. Our time has caught up with us, unfortunately. I really hope you will come back some night really, really soon, Doc. I love these conversations, as do the listeners. Now, folks, the Doc will be leaving us, but we will be back after the break, and we will be talking about some of the stuff that the Doc went over, and I'll be trying to help Joe recover. Stay tuned.
At that time, I found it a block and a half away going through someone's roof. I snuck in quick, took it, and left. I got better after that and started making gun cotton and things like that. Nitrocellulose. And then, that's as a little kid.
Oh, wow. We've, one thing that I've noticed a lot of people do now is they've been messing with flash powder.
Yeah.
And now that's kind of fun too. You use about 25 grams of that, and it's more along the lines of a woof. You don't even get the explosion really. It's just more of like a shock wave.
Yeah.
I know. It was a video on YouTube. I think there was a guy out there. He used like a 25 gram tube of this stuff, and he had a stump out in his front yard. So he's like, well, you know what? I'm going to try it on this stump. And, it was around the 4th of July. So he puts it in the stump. Wouldn't you know it blew the stump on his roof? That's crazy.
Well, Doc, after your last visit, one of my regular guests, Nanogirl, she insisted I actually ask you about something you kept referring to the first time round. You kept on referring to the grid going down. Now, do you know something that we don't, or are the powers that be planning on collapsing it? What's that all about, sir?
What do you mean exactly? I'm not getting through the accent.
It was on your first appearance on the show. You were actually talking about the grid going down. You mentioned it a few times.
The grid.
Yeah.
The grid. Yeah, coronal mass ejection from the sun has dropped, 50,000 cell phones in Toronto a couple of years back. Carrington effect. There's going to be, at some point, a large electromagnetic shockwave that will hit the Earth. It's lucky we didn't. There was a couple of them just a few months ago, but they were off to one side. It's cookbook and magical mushroom handbook, legal highs, how to make LSD in your kitchen. And that's the early years. I have become a little more, responsible. And so now I talk about pharmaceutical mushrooms rather than psychedelic. And for the
wait a minute, Doc, you had a hand in the Pirates Handbook?
Yes, I was one of the 4 contributors. Yeah.
Get out of here!
Oh no, I was. Remember, I'm MacGyver from Navy SEAL. Let me give you my cool one. The cool one is a water pistol filled with ammonia. After the zombie hordes have raided all your food stores, there's still going to be 2 things on the shelf. There's going to be bleach and ammonia. And that ammonia will stop a rabid dog and is more non-lethal than pepper spray, except they wish they were dead. And that, you can have a water cannon, that throws a quart of ammonia for hordes. That'll stop it. That'll stop it. Okay. Now, take a light bulb and you drill a hole in the bottom of it, let the air back in it. And then you put a little tiny bit of gasoline inside, maybe 1/4 of an inch. Screw it back up into the socket. It's a party waker-upper. It makes everybody get up and move.
I can only imagine.
That one will light up a room for sure.
It gets better and better with old age. Shit, I was making pipe bombs when I was 12 years old with my ChemCraft chemistry set. I
Oh,
called
there
them.
goes the NSA
There
hotline
you
then.
Well, no, I mean, you put fins on it to make it look like it's going to go somewhere stable. Didn't work like that. But see, it's like a bullet. Instead of rifling it, what you do is you put fins on it, and theoretically that'll keep it stable. It never did. This one I shot off or blew off in a rock pile. I think I was 14.
This is going to
Yeah.
be a good one, isn't it?
Oh man, I'm just chomping at the bit to get to this one here, and oh boy, here we go.
Are you ready, folks? Are you ready? It's almost Miller time.
Yes.
Yeah, high life or low life, one of them.
Definitely
Hey,
the
Doc.
highlight of my day, Doc. Welcome back to Freaky Friday, sir. How are you doing?
You bet. Thank you. I had forgotten your accents. They're lovely.
As long as you don't mistake them for being Irish, that's okay.
Yeah.
We're all good to go, man.
I kind of remember it from childhood. Yeah, it's cool. I'm good. So, you got a countdown, or you're already on live?
That's us. We're on live, Doc. We're just waiting for your special brand of knowledge to take us away into the realms of the show. I'm just going to set you off, Doc. There you
That's
go.
the Barney that I remember. I remember that song.
Oh,
Blue
wow.
Smoke rings.
He said Blarney.
I did.
Ah,
Going right up his blue smoke rings up my.
Doc, I tell you what, that just made my night right there. Tell you
Yeah,
what.
Yes, man.
Hey, so Doc, there's some stuff that you sent us this week that, and first of all, folks, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, you go to his website, drrichardallenmiller.com, and you can find some just banging information, awesome information, and a ton of books. Doc, how many books have you written?
Well, I've had a major actual manuscript ready for press for every year out of graduate school. And then I have maybe 6 monographs, PDFs, papers that each year
Wow.
out of graduate school. And I've been out of grad school, 43 years? I did one of my first books was Anarchy.
I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny. I want it all on my freedom and liberty. I'll keep my guns, you can keep your security. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny. I want it all on my freedom and liberty. I'll keep my guns, you can keep your security. I'll stand tall in the face of tyranny.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and everybody around the world. Joe Joseph here, and it's Freaky Friday. Did I do all right, Kev?
Not too bad. I think I'll be bringing it in next week, Joe. What did you do, man? You murdered my Freaky Friday.
I tried. You
The
told me to
first
bring it in. I
voyage
tried.
Of the USS Freaky Friday, and you absolutely scuppered it, man. And you, the sailor. Oh, an abomination.
I hit the reef.
How's it going, guys?
Oh man, it's awesome. This is awesome. The new Freaky Friday off on its own. The maiden voyage. Arr.
Quite deserving of its standalone slot, I would say, and a lot more convenient for some of the listeners, because a lot of the time, Joe, I had people coming to me saying that was a fantastic hour 1 of the show, but where do we go for hours 2 and 3?
Yeah, because they don't know. It's after the superstar. We're the scraps.
Oh, less of the superstar. But from now on, folks, Freaky Friday will have its very
Yes.
own dedicated page in the download section. Now, all of that comes for free here on TFR for you good folks out there. And if you've got enough shekels in your pocket, we ask you to donate, and that will actually entitle you to the full backlog of archives. And, Joe, I believe it's in CD quality.
I think you are right. 64K. Yes.
There you go, man.
So I mean, it's good, and it helps us keep things running over here at TFR, which is great, and just a good way to support it. And at the same time, you get to listen to the archives without the commercials, and in high quality. Just awesome. Should we bring on the good doc, Kev?
before we even get to that, Joe.
Oh yeah, we might want to before we get sidetracked, because if
Yeah.
we bring him on, we're going to get totally derailed.
We've, of course, tonight joined by our third member of the Woo crew, and that is the one and only Martin Hardy. Marty. Well,
Marty?
we were joined by Marty.
We were joined by
Hey, what's
Marty.
going on, folks?
There he is, man.
It's kind of hard with the
I've got
3G.
major lag issues there, folks.
Well,
Uh-oh.
What we'll do is I will actually take the chat away before we bring the good doc on. Because tonight, folks, it is Miller time. That's correct.
Yes.
Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Just listen to me. I'm sitting here grinning away. Cannot wait for this one. But before we get there, let's hit the chat. 26 in the chat so far tonight. Want you all to hit that share button. Get the word out there. This is going to be fantastic stuff. 3 hours of woo right here on TFR. So let's start with Al, Crazy Tricky, Dr. Harry Wiener himself, Frank41, Ivy Nurse, Matt D, The Darkness, Woo Woo On About, Kev T, Silverman, Kaiser Chief, Gary Cat Lover, North of South, Penelope, Longshot, Squishy, Stushy, Bagpuss, Mitty Bush, and the list goes on. Cloud, Dr. Miller's bong hit, obviously in reference to his first appearance. John Teeter was here. Absolutely fantastic name. Angel Whispers, Tinfoil Wars, Mr. Chris Geo himself, Ozzy Anzac, Adi, and the one and only Joe Joseph. Welcome, one and all. So let's try and bring the doc in here, Joe.